SUVs have grabbed the people hauler crown away from minivans, but not everyone wants or needs that many chairs. If you're a fan of the Mazda CX-90, but you only want 2 rows, then have a look at my tester, the 2025 Mazda CX-70. It's an all-new model for 2025. Mazda created it very simply by basically taking the CX-90, pulling out the 3rd row seats, and subtracting 20 from 90 to get its name. It has some quirks, and of course I'll get into those, but it's a handsome and comfortable vehicle that overall seems pricier than its tag. There's a lot of choice here. It starts with a mild hybrid driveline, and that comes in 2 power outputs. Beyond that, if you want even more electrification, you can get it as a plug-in hybrid. I'm in the standard output version of the mild hybrid, and I'll explain that in a moment. The standard output starts as a GSL trim at $49,750. I'm in the higher trim, the GT, which is $54,350, plus an extra $300 for my tester's zircon sand metallic paint. From there, the higher performance CX-70 has 2 trim levels and tops out at $62,300. The top trim plug-in hybrid takes the line up to a high of $63,350, but as a plug-in, it's eligible for any applicable green vehicle government rebates. The mild hybrid is not. But let's get back to my ride here. Both the standard and high output CX-70 models use a 3.3-liter inline 6-cylinder. In the GSL and my GT, it makes 280 horsepower and 332 foot-pounds of torque. The higher output version makes either 319 or 340 horsepower, depending on whether you put in regular or premium fuel, and 369 foot-pounds of torque. All of these models use an 8-speed automatic transmission. The mild hybrid system includes an 11 kilowatt electric motor with a lithium-ion battery that self-charges with regenerative braking. It's called a mild hybrid system because while it provides some fuel-free power to improve acceleration and fuel efficiency, the CX-70 can't drive on electricity alone as a regular hybrid does. It can shut the engine off when you're coasting, although it'll start up again right away if you press the throttle. My tester's official rating in combined city highway driving is 9.3 liters per 100 kilometers. Overall, the CX-70 is a decent driver. The ride is very smooth and it feels solid but not heavy. Mazda's sharp handling is its signature, and while this large SUV isn't exactly a sports machine, the steering is very responsive and well weighted, and it's a pleasure to drive it around. The CX-70 also has a neat little system that applies a bit of brake pressure to one wheel on curves or rough roads. This helps to stabilize the rear suspension so the vehicle stays stable and composed. Where I'm not quite as enamored with it is with the transmission. It starts with the shifter, which is unnecessarily fussy. You push a button and then push it sideways to get from park into reverse or drive, and then sideways back into park. I'm getting used to it, but drivers shouldn't have to get used to oddball ways to perform basic functions. It's also just a little bit slow for the light to come on to indicate that you're actually in park once you go over back from reverse. And then on the road, first and second gear are very short, as the CX-70 tries to get into the higher gears as soon as possible, which is where vehicles are more fuel efficient. When you try to accelerate moderately, it bumps into each gear. Everything's fine and smooth in the upper gears, but getting there is lumpy and lurching. Acceleration is smoother if you take off with authority, but that's not really an option in heavy traffic or going around a turn. It's also smoother in sport mode, but not everyone wants the engine to rev higher in everyday driving. Some tweaks to this 8-speed automatic could turn this into a very pleasant and well-rounded vehicle at all speeds. The cabin is also a very nice place to be. The seats are comfortable with a 10-way power driver's seat, power passenger seat, leather upholstery, heated front and rear seats, and a heated steering wheel. Mazda just took the 3rd row out without moving the 2nd row back, but there's still generous legroom back there. Cargo space is a considerable 1,131 liters, and that's even before you fold down the 2nd row. And then there are cubbies under the floor as well. If that isn't enough for all your stuff, the CX-70 can tow up to 5,000 pounds. The cabin design is handsome, and for the most part the controls are easy to use. There are toggles for cabin temperature, and you push one for warmer and another for cooler. Since it's derived from a 3-row model, the climate system is tri-zone, so rear seat passengers can set their own temperature and fan speeds. A 10.25-inch infotainment screen is tucked into the dash, but for embedded functions you have to use the console-mounted controller. This gets pushed, pulled sideways, or tapped to bring up menus and functions. The controller is right at hand and it's easy to use, but some functions require a few steps, and I'd prefer a touchscreen. And apparently Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are touchscreen on the larger screen in the top trims, but not on this one in Canada. It does seem odd. One more quibble, and that's the key. It's a big square one, but with tiny buttons down one side. There's enough real estate on the key face to put in bigger buttons, which I'd prefer when I'm walking towards my car in a parking lot at night. Overall, Mazda does well with the CX-70 for those who like a larger vehicle but don't need 3 rows of seats. It has a great engine, a smooth ride, a handsome and comfortable interior, tons of cargo space, and a price that seems right for what you get. A couple of tweaks could make it even better. But even so, if you're shopping in this segment, be sure to put this all-new model on your test drive list to see if it's right for you. For Driving.ca, I'm Joe McIntosh. And for more news and reviews, be sure to visit us online at Driving.ca.